The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. The following video is presented by the Center for Educational Media in partnership with Professional Educators of Tennessee's Leader U Conference. For more professional development videos, check out our website at cem.mtsu.edu.
I'm Carolyn Marino. I'm on the board for Professional Educators of Tennessee. It's my privilege to introduce Natalie Beach today. She is our board vice president this year, just nominated. And so Natalie is a kindergarten teacher at Prescott South Elementary School. It's a STEM designated school in Cookeville, Tennessee. She's taught pre-K through fourth grades in both special ed and general ed classrooms. Natalie was a 2018 Professional Educators of Tennessee Teacher of the Year and is a PBS Kids Early Learning Champion. So welcome, Natalie, and welcome to you all as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So part of my programming with PBS Kids, I'm going to ask you to pass those to those last two rows there, was a STEM educator. So there are 17, PBS Kids has Early Learning Champions is what they call them. They're just educators from around the country. There's 17 of us this year who travel and kind of have a thing. And my thing was technology and STEM. I teach at Prescott South Elementary, which is a STEM designated school, one of the first round last year through the state of Tennessee Department of Ed when they started certifying STEM schools. We were in that first round. And I'm so happy to have another teacher here from our school too to experience this. So this is something, as she walks out, thanks Sarah. Okay. We work as a team to do everything that we can to make everything as good as we can, but I want you to know and keep in your brain as we go through all of this that teaching is always a work in progress. So nothing that we talk about today is going to be like, when you do this, you have arrived. Because if you have arrived, you're not doing something that you're supposed to be doing. Because none of us will ever arrive. We'll always do it and then go, I'm going to do that different next year. So as I talk about this, I want to make sure that I stress that there is no such thing as arrived, and that just because we say this is the way it should be done or this is the best way to do it doesn't mean that that's the way it's going to work for you. We have all taken the book and thrown it behind our heads and done what needed to be done for the little people in front of us. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. This is specific to elementary school. Personalized learning has been a thing already for high school, even for middle school. Bringing it down to elementary school kids gets a little hairy. And so we're going to try to talk about that today, about how we can make something so big and so freedom rich work for little people. Okay, so this will be my 9th year to teach kindergarten. Before that, I taught in a special education room designed for kids with autism. And then before that, I had a couple of years in pre-K and a couple of years in 4th grade. I haven't taught 4th grade since there was literally a blue book. Okay, so don't ask me much about 4th grade, because how long has it been since we had the nice little blue book with the M's and the A's and the D's? Some of you have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm looking at the people who know what an M and an A and a D is in the blue book. So I don't have immediate experience with 4th grade. Kindergarten is going to be where I'm shooting. And then what the good part is for you is if you teach 4th grade, you will easily be able to scale this up. Personalized learning is easily scaled up. It's not easily scaled down. Okay, so we're going to make all of this as general as possible. Just make it work for you, and know that there is no such thing as a standard, because the standard is going to change even from year to year based on the people that you are actually looking at for that year. So the first thing we're going to do is you have in front of you Plickers. Have you ever heard of Plickers before? These are like clickers, but you don't have to have a device. So I have all of you people and I have no devices, right? All I have is my phone. So I'm going to open up Plickers on my phone, and we're going to take a little pre-test, a little quiz. here's how this works. Look at the paper that's in front of you. You have a number all over it. That's just your student number. And if you were in my class, I would have your name attached to a student number. Right now in the computer, you're just whatever that number is, okay? Oh, do you need one? Does everybody have one? Anybody else need one? Okay. Now, if you'll look, there are letters on each side of that kind of square, whatever it is. When I ask a question, you are going to look at that and you're going to show me the letter of your answer on top. Your answer on top, okay? So I'm going to scan it with my phone, and then we'll be able to see what all of you said without me asking you, and you, and you, and you, and you, okay? So, do you understand what's going to happen? I'm going to ask you a question, you're going to have choices, and then you're going to hold that piece of paper up with your answer on top, okay? All right, let's try this. Internet, don't let us down. Okay, do you currently teach in a classroom? The answer is A or B. If you put C or D, then we'll know that you're figuring this out. Okay, you ready? All right, I'm going to swipe across the room. Here we go. And I'm going to start collecting your answers. If you say C, it'll show me C, and then I'll know that you're just doing the best you can here. Okay. Move your finger for me. Maybe that's, there you go. Got it. Okay. We got some C's. Most of you are in the classroom, okay? So this tells me most of you are in the classroom. Somebody either is trying to figure this out or is being funny. Okay, let's go to the next question. Oh, I'm going to do it on here. I think that's easier. Okay, when I'm talking today, what age group of children are you going to be thinking about? Are you thinking about little bitties, first, seconds, third, fourths, or big kids? If it's all of them, just pick one for the sake of this. It's not going to stick you in anything. It's fine. This is not a commitment to life. This is just a tiny little quiz so you can practice with Plickers. Okay. Gotcha. Did you see your numbers show up there as I was doing that? All right, so we've got mainly third and fourths. We've got some littles. We've got a couple of bigs, mainly third and fourths. Okay, that helps me. All right, so let's have a discussion. Let's talk about what the difference is between differentiated and personalized learning. And let me start by saying, okay, I'm about to start my 15th year of teaching. And 15 years ago, the buzzword at Tennessee Tech, where I went to college, was differentiated learning, okay? And differentiated meant centers. And that's pretty much all they meant by differentiated learning. They didn't really mean change very much. Sometimes it meant let the high kids do extra work. Sometimes it meant let the low kids not do as much work. But there wasn't really, differentiated did not mean 15 years ago what it means now. But differentiated also doesn't mean personalized. So somebody throw out to me what you think, just from looking at the word, if you don't have any experience with it, do you think is the difference between differentiated learning and personalized learning?
Personalized is more individually centered.
Okay.
Rather than differentiated is more group.
Mm-hmm. Personalized is more individual, and differentiated is more group. Okay.
Personalized, data-driven, and observation-driven.
Okay, so personalized being data-driven and observation-driven.
That's a one-on-one.
Personalized is one-on-one. Okay. Versus differentiated, which is in a group. Okay. Other thoughts? It kind of just looks like that, doesn't it? It also, to me, makes me think that differentiated puts you, I'm going to differentiate by putting you in one of 3 learning paths, and those are the 3 tickets, and that's the only 3 tickets we're selling, and that's the only 3 trains you can get on. Where personalized could be 20 kids in this room and 20 different tickets and 20 different trains, okay? which is, oh my goodness, who pays me enough to do that, right? So that's why we're going to go through the rest of this, okay? Because it's true, if you have, okay, I have a kid who is both a stinker and 2 grade levels above her actual grade, okay? So between those 2 things, every single teacher she has, I say, I'm sorry, we are working on it, and whatever you want to tell me to work on, we will work on. We will spank, we will reward, we'll do whatever you want, just tell us what to do. She needs personalization. We are currently, my county is teaching this reading program that is differentiated and literally has 2 paths. And in the book, you do group A or you do group B. And they don't want us veering from the 2 paths. And my kid's not a group A or a group B. She's a group Z. And I want her to have group Z. I don't want her to have to be a group B all the time when she's not a group B kid. Does that make sense? So I want to teach as a teacher the way I want my child to be taught. And that is not a group A or a group B kid. So how do we do that? How do we, public school educators who are teaching everybody who they give us, regardless if they're an A, B, Z, or AA, how do we do that? That's what we're going to look at, okay? So this is from Education Elements, edelements.com. This is the main focus of personalized learning. Now, this is a total picture. But as we go through these things, you today are going to choose one. There's no way that you could pick all 4 of these and go for it. I think about all of the research. My husband and I talk about weird things, and one of them is all the research of the things you should drink. You should have a glass of orange juice every day. You should have a glass of wine every day. You should have 8 glasses of water every day. You should have this many glasses of this and this many glasses of this. If you had all of that, all you would do is drink all day, right? They're all good for you. They're all what you're supposed to have, but can you really do all of it? No. So your goal today is to pick one. And we're going to go through these. We're going to go through what the academic language is for this, and we're going to go through what that actually looks like to little kids. And then as we do that, I want you to be thinking about which one you want to make your own, okay? If you already feel like you're good at one, then pick a number 2, okay? So we're going to go through flexible content and tools, targeted instruction, student reflection and ownership, and data-driven decisions, okay? These are all things that we've already talked about. We've already talked about data with personalization. You've already given me data to personalize this as much as I can with as big of a group as this is. We are going to talk about targeted instruction, about just you, one-on-one, we said. And we're going to talk about flexible content and tools. There's not just 2 trains. There's not just 4 trains. There could be 20 trains. And so we got to figure out how that can actually work for us, okay? The first one, what does personalized learning look like when we're talking about flexible content and tools? Well, we're talking about a different pace maybe. We're talking about a different path, and we're talking about different performance tasks. We're not going to make everybody do the same thing or use the same tools. If you think about the class you had last year, they can't do the same thing, and they can't use the same tools. So we're not going to make them. We're not going to say, I know, but this is the assignment, and so I want you to do it, because that's what I said, and that's what the book told me to do. So we're going to find different ways for you to meet this goal, maybe with a different pace, maybe with a different path, maybe with different performance tasks, okay? Then we're going to look at targeted instruction. So not only is it what does the kid need, but it might be what does the kid want to learn. Have you ever tried to teach a kid something that he thinks he's terrible at, and how does that go over? But what if you try to teach a kid something that he wanted to learn, even if he was still terrible at it? Then he wants to. I can remember a 4th grader that I had 14 years ago who, for some reason, he was bad at math. He was bad at all math. He was bad at math. But he decided he was good at fractions. And so we got to fractions, and he was like, yeah, I can do this. I'm good at fractions. And he did, not great, but better at fractions than he did all the other math, because he'd convinced himself that he was good at it, and he wanted to learn more of it. So Can we let them set goals on things that they want to learn? Now, do they still have to learn the things they don't want to? Yes. But can we capitalize on what they want to learn and make it better for them? Yes. Now, this is just one choice, remember. So don't overwhelm yourself. So far, we've got two choices here. Now, here's the third one. Data-driven decisions. Okay, are we collecting data frequently? I'll tell you, if you asked me about data when I first started teaching, I would tell you about last year's TCAP. We've come a long way in that. Every 4.5 weeks and probes every 2 weeks and all kinds of other things. We have data available to us that we have never had available to us before. And as cumbersome as it can be sometimes, it can really help us make great decisions. So we're going to collect data frequently. We're going to actually use that data for something. It's going to inform our instructional decisions and our instructional groupings. Flexible grouping is another hot hot button issue when it comes to education, this flexible grouping. Well, how flexible is the grouping? Does that mean that you're in the green group for a week or for a month or till you need to move, or how does that flexible grouping work? And so using data to inform these decisions and to inform how we make groups is another focus. Remember, you've got 4 choices. That's number 3. Let's look at number 4. This is the one that my school, my entire school, has chosen to work on. And it's student reflection and ownership. I feel like it's the most different than what we have already been trying to do with differentiation. We've already been trying to use data to make decisions. We've already been trying to give different kids different paths. Something that we really don't do, particularly with little kids, is give them a choice. We give big kids choices. We let big kids do things. I know the one reason I don't give little kids choice is because little kids don't know what they want and they make 47 choices and none of them really work out. And so how do you give a little kid a choice that they can actually make and commit to and that you can support? So we'll talk about that too. But the one that our school, which is pre-K through 4th grade, is choosing last year and this year is student reflection and ownership. Do they get to choose? Do they get to reflect on what they did? Yes, I like it. No, I don't like it. Yes, I'm good at it. No, I'm not good at it. There's a lot of value to knowing that you're good at something or terrible at something. And then do they own their own learning? Are they responsible? The big word that we use is not own their own learning, but responsibility. Do they take responsibility? Are they responsible for their own learning? So this is choice number 4. Okay, these are the 4 things that we're going to talk about and explore. So just looking at those 4 that we've talked about briefly, and we're going to talk about them more in a little bit. Which one of these do you think is easiest for you to just kind of, yeah, that's what I already do, or for you to flow into? Somebody be brave.
For me, it's probably the data-driven one because I work in the title room at our school, and so we're constantly collecting data. We do PSIs on our kids, PSIs that the teachers don't even do on the regular classrooms.
Right.
So, we're constantly switching our small groups according to what that new PSI shows us.
Right. So data-driven decisions is really easy to do in a Title I room, in an intervention room, because you have to. I mean, the state's telling you that you're going to do these assessments, so then you use them. You use them to change groups, to tell what they need. I think I have always used data to change groups and to say, okay, now he's ready for this group, or she needs to come down to this group. But I haven't done a great job of using data to say, okay, so these people need to learn this. Because I've always had my train is already built, and they're just getting on the train. But what's different about this, I think, from my own perspective, is that you have to build a new train. That it's not about just getting them on the train you've always done, and we do lesson 1, and we do lesson 2, and we do lesson 3. But you don't need that, so we'll do lesson 37 and 38 and 39. It might not be that linear. And so we got to rethink the train. Does that make sense? But data-driven decisions, I think, is something that, yes, that we are pretty good at already. Anything else?
I've always done student reflection, starting with creating our own classroom constitution, where they create it and own it, down to when we do our research paper in 1st grade in the spring, they choose, we all do the animals because that's the standard.
Right.
They're getting to choose their animals and their resources.
Yes. So that choice is a big deal. And first graders, particularly at the end of first grade, are good at making choices and sticking with them. Yeah. Oh, we do the exact same project in first grade because it's a standard, but our first graders do, and we love it. Were you going to say something?
Well, targeted instruction for me as a special educator, we rebuild that train almost daily.
Yes.
We're trying to figure out, okay, what do you need today? What do you need next week? And
Yes.
did you learn what we practiced this week? If not, then we got to figure out another way to build that train.
Yes. And I have done both special education in a CDC classroom. So it's just me and 12, they were almost all guys. It was an autism room, so that's where we were. And so I was rebuilding trains all the time. And then I moved to gen ed, and it's hard because I had 3 assistants with these 12 guys over here. You know what I mean? And then I came over here, and it's me. And I get an assistant for 3 hours a week, and she does my copies because that's all a person can do in 3 hours a week. So changing that mindset is how it's hard. I do think every gen ed teacher should have to teach SPED, and every SPED teacher should have to teach gen ed because people don't cross those lines very well, and they don't see the other side of the coin. But it's hard because, yes, you all are really good at rebuilding trains. Number one, we haven't been trained to rebuild trains, and number two, we don't have time to rebuild trains, and so trying to figure out how to do that. So yes, I think you guys, SPED is excellent at that targeted instruction. So what has nobody picked? Flexible content and tools?
I'll choose that one. To me, that works. I'm an art teacher, so I have to be super flexible with my content and tools.
Yes.
And there'll be one class that does really, really well. Like I just did a weaving unit, having the kids learn how to weave in 2nd grade.
Yes.
And they did fabulous. And then I had another class that totally bombed.
Yes.
And I was like, well, what am I doing?
So you have to be flexible with them. I think it's so cool because what we've just described are 4 totally different classrooms. An art class, of course, can be good at flexible content and tools. But my little kids who can't walk from here to there for the first 3 weeks of school, some of them 9 weeks of school, flexible content and tools is not on the top of my list. So that's why we all got to pick what we all got to pick and decide what is going to be easy to kind of transition to. And if you're already doing it, maybe that's not the one you pick. Maybe you pick one that you want to build a little better. Okay, so let's go the opposite direction. For me, I'll tell you, flexible and content and tools is number 4 on my list. It's not something that I feel like I could present to 5-year-olds until at least after Christmas. And honestly, we did a great project before we went to the zoo in May that was all flexible content and tools. But it was May, you know what I mean? And so that may be something that in kindergarten I have to say, which we say a lot. If you're a kindergarten teacher and you're not claiming this, you should. We say all the time, but we're kindergarten, we live on an island. But we're kindergarten, that doesn't apply to us. But we're kindergarten, and our principal hates it, but man, we use it like crazy.
And in a classroom like mine, data-driven, that would drive me crazy.
Right.
I'd be like, what can I do with that?
Right. And so that data is not as important to you as the flexible content and tools. And that's okay.
It's nice that I get to look at that, and the teachers, let me look at that, and but as far as being useful to me, it's not.
But I feel like, too, I'm pointing to my own music teacher here.
Assessments are huge in our area.
Yes, but I also feel like you all who are teaching these arts and all of these extra pieces that they need so desperately are the great equalizers. Because sometimes you can't tell the one who can and can't for us based on what they're able to do for you all. So I appreciate that about how you all do that, is sometimes I don't really want you to know the data on my stuff. You might know the skills assessment for what you're doing, but you all are the great equalizers for the little guy who just can't get it together. For me, he actually enjoys coming to you and can work very hard and be very successful for you.
And some of that student reflection and ownership, we can also work somewhat like with that.
Yes.
Because we do with our standards, they do ask us to do the reflection.
A lot of reflection too. What were we going to say?
The flexible content, the last school I taught at, we were allowed, our scores were so high, it was a community that was affluent, that we were allowed to use like real literature.
Yes.
Whereas the next school I'm in, same school district, we're required to use wonders.
Yes.
So flexibility comes sometimes too with ability.
Yes.
And so and resources. So at the other school, we had iPads and the Chromebooks and everything. So I could have for reading or social studies or science or math, all these different ways of doing it because I was allowed to.
Right.
So a lot of it comes top down, like what are you allowed to do?
In my system right now, we have adopted a reading program that, we've always been told, have you ever heard with fidelity? So we've always been told with fidelity, and then by year 3 of that 6-year adoption, they're like, yeah, we'll do whatever you need to do and just make it happen, because we realized that maybe that didn't work out so well. Well, we're in year 2 of the with fidelity, no more, no less, read every single one of those pages and you make them sit down and you finish it. So flexible content and tools in reading anyway is just not an option for me, because if anybody were to walk in my room and I was doing anything other than reading this spiral bound book to these little people, that's a thing, Now math, I can do that. I can be a little bit more flexible in math than I can reading, but I think you're right. A lot of that has to do with curricular decisions that we are not even close to a part of. And ability. Yeah. Okay, anybody else targeting a hard one? Which one of these seems most difficult? Just toss it out now. Because I'll tell you the flexible content and tools until about January, I'm tossing it out. It's not happening. Anybody else see a hard one? Okay, let's talk about what they do look like. And then maybe that will help you a little bit to see. Okay, so you've hopefully got one in your head. Do you have one in your head that's going to be your target until you change your mind? And that's okay if you change your mind. You got one in your head that's going to be your target for now. Okay, so let's go through these and look at what they actually look like for little people. Okay, the first one is student reflection and ownership. So have you seen, this is from a teaching in the clouds. Have you seen this before? Must do and may do is something that we use, again, because my school is part of our goal is student reflection and ownership. And must do, may do is something that our school does as a whole. And it looks very different in kindergarten than it does 4th grade. And must do, may do in 4th grade might be a week-long project list of tasks that must be completed and tasks that they can do, almost like an early finisher. Does that make sense? But then there are other times, like with little people, that I have to have it cutesy-pootsy like this in order for them to see. And my must-do might be something like, you have to finish this piece of paper, and then you can do this, what I would usually call early finisher. The difference is I'm giving everybody time to finish early and choose a may-do. Does that make sense? And then you've got your catch-up, the guy who never finished his must-do from the last time, who's got to do his catch-up now. So those kids exist too, the guy who lives in must-do and catch-up his whole life. But the goal is that we give him some may-do time somewhere, that we let him do something that he chooses. Because you all know of a little guy, and probably a guy, there's a couple girls I've had, but most of them are little guys, who are stuck in the must-do catch-up cycle, right? So how do we get our SPED teachers to help us a lot of times, to help us get that must-do done so that the may-do can have time. Because we want them to own it. And if they don't own it, then they become the kid caught in the cycle. And then they're not going to reflect on anything. They're not going to own anything because they're just doing what their teacher told them they had to do. There's no choice. There's no ownership. I'm just doing it because she told me to. And they'll continue for the next 13 years to just do it because someone told them to. And then we get on to them because they can't make any decisions for themselves. And what have they been doing for the last 13 years? Just trying to stay alive and do what she told me to. So the goal of this must do, may do is that everybody gets a chance to get to the may do part. Now, some of your kids will live in the may do part. You've got kids who can finish whatever you give them in 3 seconds flat, and they can move on to the may do, which is what you've wanted to do anyway. All of those research projects that you've wanted that kid who reads 3 grade levels above where they're supposed to be able to do, this is a time to let them do that. And the next guy who finishes in 30 minutes, not 3 minutes, can still work on his research project, maybe not as long, but that's okay because he can't write as much anyway, right? And so it kind of equalizes things out. He gets to work on it too, but there's not as much expectation on him as there is the guy who's had 30 minutes to write 3 paragraphs. So this actually can work at any level, but the cutesy version usually is a K1 thing, And then the big kid version might be on Google Classroom or even just on the board, a list of projects that need to be completed in the week. And once this list of projects is completed in the week, then this will happen, okay? And how do those things happen? How do you structure the day? We're getting there. Right now, just live with this for a second, and we'll get to the how. This is the what, we'll get to the how, okay? This is the big kid version. You might say, or even, this is really a second or third grade version. You have to do your word work. You have to do your journal. You have to do your rainbow words. After that, you can choose a book box. You can choose partner flashcards. You can choose Write the Room. You can choose some other larger research project. You can choose something else. But you have to do these things, then you may do these things. Okay, that doesn't mean, I keep thinking about you over here, Kathy, that doesn't mean that you're not still going to modify. You might still modify. That guy might only do half of the word work. He might only have to write a sentence in the journal instead of a paragraph. And he might only do 4 rainbow words instead of 8. Because again, we don't want him stuck in the, we don't want him stuck in the must-do catch-up cycle. Okay. So that's what student reflection ownership really, or one example of what it really looks like. Okay. Next, what does flexible content and tools look like? Well, today we're going to look at a playlist. So you're going to get to see what a playlist looks like. Have you heard of playlists before? Okay, yay. You're going to get to see it. Okay. Google Classroom is another way to manage that. Again, flexible content and tools is really hard with little kids. So I'll tell you a couple ways to do that. But for the most part, this is a big kid thing. Okay. Google Classroom, I would not do under 2nd grade. I've tried it. Not really worth anybody's time or headache below 2nd grade. Playlists can be done with little kids if you manage them well, if you keep them small. You all know if you give a 6-year-old 5 choices, that a 6-year-old will make 0 choices, right? So give them 2 or 3 and it'll work. Self-paced online games is one of the best ways I have found to do this with little kids. If you find a few self-paced online games and give them a choice on which one to play, they can choose their own content, they can choose their own skills, but you have given them the choices you want them to have. So mine in my room are Teacher Monster to Read. Have you heard of Teacher Monster to Read? It's awesome. It's British. It's free. It's for kids in pre-K through maybe the first semester of 2nd. If they're struggling, it's all phonemic awareness and phonics. So it's just kids who are decoding. So it really shouldn't go past kindergarten or the first semester of 2nd grade unless you got those guys who just need the practice. Teacher Monster to Read. Another one is Happy Numbers. That costs money, but they love it. And then I'm trying to think of the other choice that they usually have. Happy Numbers. Teacher Monster to Read. I'll think of it in a second. It'll come back to me. But these self-paced online games are things that they can do on their own as little kids, and they get a choice, but they're really still working on the same thing. They're just choosing how they're working on it. It also is helpful with the little ones because when you're teaching a kid to read, there are 47 trains. And again, how can you manage all those trains? You let somebody else build the train. And this is all those self-paced online games where you can build them a login, will take their data from what they're doing performance-wise and move them along. Now, there are also plenty of others that the schools already buy. Compass Learning, Study Island, iExcel. What are other things that your schools already buy? Prodigy. Reflex Math. So there are lots of things schools already buy. These self-paced games are another way for them to choose what they play. It's all the same thing, but they're getting to choose how it works. And then long-term projects. When I taught 4th grade, we're going to talk about background groups in a little bit. I had a background group of kids. They were in the 4th grade reading on a 6th and 7th grade level. So they were reading a novel while I was working with these guys here. They're reading a novel right here, and they can ask me a question, and I can hear if they're saying things that they shouldn't say. But really, they're taking care of themselves, and I'm asking questions along the way while all my attention is really on this group right here. You can do the same thing with long-term projects. you can let some kids take care of some long-term projects and build those long-term projects to be as big or small as those kids need, so they can take on a long-term project too with that flexible content and tools. Okay, here's a playlist. This is an example of a playlist. We're going to see a more complex playlist later, but this is one for the little guys, okay? This is from a place called Lesson Paths. You have to be careful with lesson paths, just like teachers pay teachers and everything else in the world, because it's made by well-intended teachers, but it doesn't mean that it's well created or that the content is vetted well, okay? So you'd have to make sure that it is something that's appropriate and that it's well put together, but this is what it is. So Lesson Paths puts a playlist together. This one is about nouns. So there are 3 steps to this playlist. So first they're going to watch a YouTube video about the best noun ever. Then they're going to watch a YouTube video with the Schoolhouse Rocks nouns. And then they're going to watch a YouTube video of common versus proper nouns. And all along the way, they might have a project or something that they're recording or doing along the way. But you're letting them watch TV, right? They think that's the coolest thing ever. This is something that we used to have to do in front of everybody because we only had that one device and we were all watching the board together. But a group of kids can do this playlist not knowing that that group over there is not doing common and proper nouns, but they're doing letters, sounds, words, whatever it needs to be. They're doing capital letters over there. They're doing common and proper nouns, but we're all doing a playlist. So they have no idea that the content is different. And it's a playlist for them to go through and see. Some of these playlists, these lesson paths, you can do out of order. And some of them you have to do in order. So you can choose, no, you have to do step 1, you have to do step 2, you have to do step 3, or you can choose, just go over there and watch these noun videos as long as you can tell me the answers to this, or as long as we can discuss this when you get back, then we're good. So you have to decide with the age and responsibility of that particular group how you wanted to structure that. But these playlists, again, are already created for you. You have to look at them once, or you can create your own. Questions about that? Playlists? You're going to do a grown-up playlist in a little bit. Looks a little better than this, a little different. Okay. Now, targeted instruction. This does make me think SPED when we think about targeted instruction. And it looks different in every classroom. One of them is a classic small group. I have a group, then they're going to go to that place, and then they're going to go to that place, and then they're going to go that place. That could be targeted instruction if all those people are targeted for a specific skill or maybe their skill level. A background group could be one where we've got these 5 kids who already know how to do this skill that we're going to be working on for the next 3 weeks, but I've already assessed them and know that they can do it. So instead, they're going to come over here and do this project over here together while the rest of us are doing this part. Does that make sense? This is what I'm hoping for my own child when she already knows how to do this along with a bunch of her classmates, that they can be working on something over here too. So this is a background group, okay? And then today we're going to look at pull-out groups. So we're going to do that too. Pull-out groups are the newest way to use data that's not that classic small group of you're the green group, and the green group goes here, and then the green group goes here, and then the green group goes here. That's what we've been doing, right? That's how you teach kindergarten. That is the standard kindergarten teaching manual. It says you got a green group, and they go here, 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 and here. Then you got a blue group, and they go here, 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 and here. A pull-out group is not that way. A pull-out group is, I have taught this, and these 5 people can't do it. So these 5 people are coming over here while everyone else is busy doing something else. They may or may not be in the green group or the blue group or the red group or the whatever. They're just the 5 people who can't do it. Or it could be that I have data that these 5 people can do it, and I'm going to waste their time by teaching them all of this. So I'm going to pull them over here, and I'm going to teach them the next step, even though everybody else isn't ready for it. So I'm using my data not to keep a group going, but to pull just a few at a time. So then the question is, what are the rest of those people doing? And that's where you've got to look to this targeted instruction. Is there something else that they can do? This is the what, we'll get to the how. Okay. So then the data-driven decisions. We are all doing regular skills checks. And a lot of us are doing flexible grouping, which is different than that pull-out. But flexible grouping meaning we're going to have a group of kids who might be traveling together, but then we're going to be able to move those kids whenever we need to. We're not going to track these kids. We're not going to say, you're in the green group from August to May. But we're going to move you along with whoever can do those things or can't do those things, with whoever is performing like you, so that we can work on the skills that you need. It also means that we're going to use that data to make heterogeneous groups and homogeneous groups. That we are not going to group you all one way or another all the time, but that you're going to be with people who are like you and people who aren't like you. There's a lot of value to both of those. Okay. So here's the how. Okay, this is the educational elements version of how. And it looks a lot like what kindergarten stations used to look like if you're just looking at it. But I'm going to explain it to you because it's way different. Okay, this is the how. What does it actually look like? Well, if you look at Bloom's taxonomy, and we're trying to structure this the way this company is telling us to, you've got your remembering and your understanding. That's where that individualized, that teacher monster to read, that happy numbers, that I excel, that prodigy. That's just, do you know how to do it at all? Like, do you know what the content is? That's not very higher order. It's just drill and skill and drill and skill and drill and skill. There's value in it for little kids. They have to know their letters. They have to know their numbers. They have to be able to read sight words. They have to know their times tables. Don't say that out loud to people. They have to know their times tables, okay? Now, applying and analyzing is a little bit more and needs some teacher. Applying and analyzing needs teacher instruction. But then if we're asking them to evaluate and create, they don't need us. In fact, if they have us, then they're not evaluating and creating. So that's where we need to get our hands off of it. So this is the structure that they would have us do. First, around the perimeter of the room, you have individuals, okay? They're on Chromebooks, they're on tablets, they're on old dinosaur computers, they're on whatever you got. And they are all by themselves with a set of headphones doing something just for them, okay? So where are those people when you've got this group pulled out? Well, some of them are all by themselves on a device with headphones. And it doesn't have to be all the same device. It could be one iPad, one Chromebook, one tablet, and one phone that my grandma gave me. We have used old phones that people have thrown out, okay? So use what you got, okay? Then the small group is with the teacher. Now that's a monster small group for little people, but you know, I wouldn't have more than 6. But I guess if you had to, you have to. This is a small group being taught by the teacher. So this is your pull-out group. This is where you say, these people can't do it, so I'm going to bring you over and teach you how to do it. Or these people can do it and no one else can, so I'm going to bring you over and I'm going to teach you the next step. It might also be just a regular thing. In kindergarten, I have to teach you the next part of reading every single day. So it might not be that I've evaluated and I see that you can't, so I need to teach you. It might be, okay, let me teach you the next step of how to read. And so that might be your small group, okay? And then the third piece, the third group, is in this project or group learning. This is the problem with early childhood right here. This is why this is a good high school thing and not great for kindergartners, is this project and group learning. So we're going to talk about how to structure that. Yeah, we can put a kid on a device and we can have a small group. Anybody set first graders on their own with a project while the teacher's not sitting beside them? It's fun. It actually is possible if you train them, but you got to do a lot of training. You got to start small with your expectations. You got to start small with what your idea of a project is. Okay, so your idea of a 5th grade project is not a project for a first grader. A first grader might just be researching something and writing 3 sentences about it. That might be the project. A first grader might be collecting data from their group. That might be the project. It might be something very small to start with, and then as you train them, they can grow from that, okay? So as we were talking about small group instruction and pull-out, what's everybody else doing? This is what everybody else is doing. While we were talking about working on a project, we're working on a project. What's everybody else doing? This is what they're doing. So you've essentially got your class in 3 sections. They don't have to be even sections. It may be that they spend 2 times on the individual, 1 time on small group, 1 time on project. It might mean that they spend 3 times on project, 1 time on small group, and no individual. This does not all have to be equivalent. Does that make sense? Okay, questions so far? Looks good on paper, right? I don't know what my people are going to look like in the next 6 weeks, so I don't know if this is going to work for me this year. You don't know what your people are going to look like when they show up in 6 weeks, so you don't know if this is going to work. But we're going to do the best we can, and this is what it looks like, okay? So, according to educational elements, how do we get started? Well, step 1 would be to align your curriculum goals with your personalized vision, which means you got to know what your vision is. Like, I just want my kids to do what? Or I just want me to do what? I'll tell you, my goal this year is I just want to let go a little. I am a micromanager, a control freak, my way or the highway. But I need to let go a little. Not in the first 3 weeks of kindergarten, but I will eventually. I need to let go a little. And so my goal this year is to let go a little, not to lose my classroom management, not to lose control of my classroom, but to release a little bit of control of what they learn and how they learn it to the people who, honestly, 5 and 6-year-olds know a lot more than we give them credit for about themselves and what they want. So that's my personalized learning vision. You're going to have to know yours. And how do all my curriculum goals align with my personalized learning goals? I also know that my curriculum in reading will not support this year. So I just have to, as angry as it makes me, because I don't like reading spiral-bound books to children. I don't think that's the way you teach reading. I have to. It's not my choice. So I've got to move this to math this year, which is not the way I want to do it, but it's the way it's going to happen, okay? Because I've got to align my curriculum goals and the expectation of my principal with my own goals. If I don't, then I'm just fighting a losing battle with myself, because she could care less what I think, because I'm going to do what she says. So I don't need to have that battle with myself. I'm just going to move it so that it aligns to what I need it to align with, okay? Phase 2 would be to determine those offline and online curriculum alignments and the role of digital tools. What digital tools do I have? I'll tell you, I have iPads, and I have 10 iPads. I'm really excited about my 10 iPads. My 10 iPads are from 2010. So they're great, 10 iPads, but they do very little because they're so old. So I'm doing what I can with what I have. So you got to think about, what tools do I have, and what is my school system paying for? What free things can I get? What other curriculum pieces can I get? Okay, and then step 3 is going to be try it out. So you got 6 weeks or so, right? We start at the end of July. I report back July 23rd. I know. So I have less than 6 weeks to get my plan together, and then we're going to try it out. Again, my plan's probably going to be delayed till I can get everyone to pee in the potty first, but I'll get there, okay? If you don't teach kindergarten, then enjoy your potty-free carpet, okay? So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this more. I wanted to make them big so that you can see this, because you're about to go through a piece of paper. We are actually going to do this today. We're going to run the map, okay? So I'm going to ask you some questions, and so you're going to go through each phase to try to align your curriculum goals with your vision. So you're going to come up with your vision real fast. You're going to try to determine those curriculum alignment pieces, and you're going to think about how you're going to actually make this happen. And if you don't, I won't come to your classroom to see that, so don't freak out, okay? So here's what we're going to do today. Here's the map, okay? So today, we're going to make this map look like this room, okay? So you see this L right here? This L is going to be this L. You follow me? So these people here are going to have a playlist that I'm going to show you, and you are going to individually be exploring what personalized learning looks like, okay? I have a playlist for you. And the playlist has all 4 core. So whichever one you said you wanted to think about, you can click on videos and articles and read about what that looks like, what the research looks like, what people doing it looks like. You're going to do that part, okay? Then there's going to be a small group in the middle section, and that's going to be me talking to you about whatever you want to talk about. Okay? I'm not going to be the one who's dictating anything on that. We'll just talk. Okay? Then over in this section over here, you all are going to be working on this piece of paper that is literally the plan. Okay? Everything that we've just talked about in bullet points. What am I going to do? How am I going to do it? You're not turning this in. I don't care if you even write on it. It's just there for you to have. Okay? So we're going to go through this map together. Let me read to you a little bit about this, and then I'll show you the playlist, and we're going to get going. That playlist will be found on the tiny URL. Again, I'll show you in just a second. All right, so on this piece of paper that's going to be on this side of the room, this is going to be your small group. So you're going to be talking to each other. You're going to be working together on this piece of paper. Phase 1, you're going to look at, okay, what do I want it to look like in my room? What are my goals for right now? I mean, it could be your goal forever, but really, what's your goal for this year? What's your goal for this semester? What's your goal for this grade level? What's your goal for this one period? Whatever you've got, okay? What does it physically look like, and how much time are you going to spend on it? You're not going to be doing this all day. I have 2 hours of reading a spiral-bound book to 5-year-olds. I know it. So I'm just tossing that out. I'm moving to math, which means I got 45 minutes. So 45 minutes is my time this year, okay? What will I teach? Math, check. That's me. What do you already teach? What do you already do that looks like personalized learning? Like, what could you do to tweak it? Don't pick the hardest possible thing you have and say, I'm going to overhaul this year. Find that what you already do and just improve it a little, and then improve that a little bit, and then improve that a little bit, okay? Then you're going to move to phase 2. What parts are you going to use technology? What parts are you not going to use technology? How much technology do you have? Where are you going to be able to use it? Do you have subscriptions or software that people are already paying for? Or do you know of free stuff that you can use? And what print resources do you have? Okay? So think about different things that you already have available to you or that you can find. And then the phase 3. Okay, so when I get back to school, what are things that I'll have to consider in order to get this to work? Am I going to have to rearrange my room? Am I going to have to throw stuff out or bring stuff in? Am I going to have to teach new rules? I'll tell you, in kindergarten, August looks very different than April. And then I know you all can look at a kid and say, you're end of 2nd grade, you're beginning of 2nd grade. You're end of 4th grade, you need to go back to 3rd. You know, you can tell that immediately. So your goal is going to be different in August than April. So what are your goals? Like, what do I want to accomplish by August? What do I want to accomplish by April? What does success look like? And we're not going to call it failure, but when do you need to regroup? When do you need to say, okay, forget it. Don't do it the first day, it's terrible, okay? The first day, everything's terrible. I tell that to new teachers all the time. I feel like I've worked with a new teacher every single year. I've had a new teacher on my team, and I've had to say, listen, the first week is terrible, and it's not because you're a new teacher, and it's not because you're bad at it. It's because the first week is terrible, okay? So don't put that on yourself. The first week is terrible for every person everywhere, and then it gets better from that. So the same thing. Don't tell yourself that you need to regroup after the first day's terrible. But you do need to know, okay, how much time am I willing to lose on this before I start changing my plan, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, so this is the playlist that I was talking about. So now you know over here you're going to be making your plan. Here we're going to be talking. And over here you can use, your phone plays YouTube just as good as a laptop or anything else. This playlist has everything that you would need, including routines and procedures, if you think that that would help you figure out how you want to do this, okay? So you would click on one of these. Let me show you what it looks like. This is a playlist. Come on, internet. This gives information of what we did. And then down here, okay, you see it shows you different ways that you can look at groups, instruction, and data. You can click on each one. It tells you how long each one of these videos is, so you know how much time you want to spend or waste or whatever you want to do there, okay? So you can pick which one. You don't like it, close it, go to another one, okay? There's nothing that stops you from or keeps you stuck to one or the other. You are just exploring, okay? This is like a Facebook rabbit hole. You can do it for as long as you want. And because you all are not 7, I'm not putting a timer on it, okay? So you're going to do this and move across these groups however you feel like you need to. If you were 7, I would put a timer on you and I'd say, okay, now let's look at where we are. Do we need more time? Do we need to move? Whatever that is. For you all, you've got 30 minutes, and I do need you back. So we're not going to do the whole 30 minutes. We're actually going to do 20 minutes. We're going to do 20 minutes of this open time. Don't waste your 20 minutes, okay? Even if it's just watching YouTube videos for 20 minutes, do it. Or do that piece of paper for 20 minutes. Do something for 20 minutes, then we're going to regroup and talk. Does that make sense? Okay. At 4:05, we're going to talk for 2 seconds and be done. Okay? So we're going to come back to our tables at 4:05. So you've got 20 minutes to do 1, 2, or 3 things. That's totally up to you. You have student choice. Okay? And you're going to choose to come over here and be individual, to come here and talk and discuss, or to come here and work on this project with yourself or a group. Questions? Go. Tell me something that you learned or discovered today that you did not already know. And since so many of you said you knew nothing, I'm hoping you got something for me. Anything? This is not encouraging.
The flexible content, so to have that content flexible for the kids so they can learn what they want.
So got it. Okay. And that's something, like, we know about data-driven decisions. We know about differentiation. But I think the cool part of that, of personalized learning, is the choice and the flexibility of it. And we have so many kids who can handle that. Yeah, we got some who can't. We always have some who can't. But that doesn't mean that we should keep it from the kids who can.
Yeah. I like the lesson paths. That's not something I knew about before.
Okay.
So that's something I'll definitely use this year.
Lesson paths. Very cool. And I think you can do, like, YouTube videos, you can do articles, you can do all kinds of stuff there. And that's a lot like Google Classroom. But again, if you have little guys, then Google Classroom might not be the thing for you. Lesson paths might be a better way to manage that. Okay, so what do you think you're going to do this year? What's your next step? Like, is it just a talk about it, think about it year? Do you have a goal in mind?
Give myself permission not to be 100% successful, but to keep working on these ideas. And remember what's successful, and even learn from the failures, you know, but not to not do it.
Right. Learn from the failures. Know that it's not going to be 100% successful, and don't throw it out just because it's not perfect. Y'all, if we threw out everything that wasn't perfect, we'd be in big old trouble. So try it. Use what you can. Make it a little better. Anything else? Any other questions? Any more? Okay, you hung in there a long time.